Hello, ladies. First of all, this is a completely different teacher than you're used to seeing. At first I wasn't going to give you my face, but then I decided that I missed all of yours, so maybe you missed mine. But if not, it's fine. Just ignore me in the corner and focus on the screen. Alright, so we are going to start off by talking about the historical background information for The Great Gatsby. Hopefully you're all so excited to start reading it. I am. It's my favorite book of all time. I've read it about, I don't even know how many times at this point. But it's going to be great, and even though we won't be together, you're still going to be able to enjoy it. And here's where we begin. Okay, so if you have opened the document that's on Moodle, it looks like this. You should also see it on your screen. You're kind of just going to follow along while I talk and take notes on each of the different images that are on the document. Okay, so we have our first one, F. Scott Fitzgerald. So he's obviously the author of The Great Gatsby. What a stud, right, ladies? I mean, look at that handsome face. There's that chiseled cheekbone. Just, they don't make him like F. Scott Fitzgerald anymore. Okay, so he was born in 1896. He died in 1940. 1920 to 1940, this is where his jazz age is. And during this time, he wrote 4 novels, 160 short stories, yes, 160, and 1 play. In 20 years, let's just go back over that. 20 years, 4 novels, 160 short stories, and a play. Can you even imagine? Because I can't. It's insane. He was married to his wife. Her name was Zelda. He loved her immensely. However, they had a pretty rocky marriage, mainly because they were rocky themselves. Zelda was plagued with mental issues, and she battled a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. Her mental health was not great. And F. Scott Fitzgerald had his own problems. He was an alcoholic. He had battled addiction. That affected their marriage, and so they were kind of like a tornado and a volcano. Put them together, and it was just an explosion. But they were beautiful and passionately in love, and he even dedicated The Great Gatsby to Zelda, which he published The Great Gatsby in 1925. So in the middle, only 5 years after that 20-year span of where he went on like this just huge writing spree. 1925, and that was the midst of the Jazz Age, which he basically coined the term for, which is pretty cool. To invent an age, you got to be pretty high up there to invent an age. Alright, so moving on from F. Scott Fitzgerald, although I would love to talk about him all day long. Our next image is World War I, and you can see the time period there is 1914 to 1918. So we had 4 years that we were in this war. The beginning of this time, it was a period of just setbacks. People didn't have, you held everything back. They didn't have a lot of excess of anything. We went into this war, and people were looking for things to be more excited about. People wanted to have more. They wanted to do fun things. They wanted to do exciting things. They needed that excitement and that passion in their lives. And so after this World War ended, which it ended on November 11th, 1918. Any of you know the significance of that day? That's when we celebrate Veterans Day now, which was formerly Armistice Day. And so at the end of World War I, people were tired of not having, tired of being held back. And so this is when we went into our age of excess. And now it's give me, gimme, 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 gimme. I want this, I want that, I want it all, I want it now, I want it fast. Things just rapidly changed, though. It was called the Age of Excess. It was considered an age of miracles, an age of achievements. Things were just popping off in the United States for the better. Good things here, big things here, new, shiny. Everything was new and inventive, and people were thriving. And moving on to the next picture, because we know that Thriving can't last forever. Nothing good stays. We have the third picture. The House votes 289 to 121 to submit Prohibition Amendment to states. So, if you're prohibited for anything, you can't have it. Someone is stopping you. Someone is saying, no, you can't have this thing, or you can't do this thing. What was prohibited this time was alcohol. The manufacturing and the selling, and of course the consumption of alcohol. And so that went on for quite some time, for about 13 years. So from about 1920 to 1933, we were under the age of prohibition. And so alcohol was illegal. No one could drink no matter how old you were. And moving on to our fourth picture. Sorry, I've been forgetting to pull down the screen for you there. Our fourth picture, the 19th Amendment, votes for women. Yay! We did it, girls! So the 19th Amendment was passed by Congress in 1919. June 4th, 1919 is when it was passed by Congress. But it wasn't ratified until over a year later on August 18th, 1920. So even after Congress said, yeah, okay, we'll give women the basic right to vote, we've been depriving them of this all their lives, but it still took over a year for it to become an actual law, an actual amendment. So it wasn't until 1920 that women officially received the right to vote. And ladies, let's think for a minute. Right now, we're in year 2020. So only 100 years ago did women get the right to vote. That sucks. So after women received the right to vote, they obviously were feeling very empowered. They were feeling politically empowered, socially empowered. They were just full of exuberance and confidence. Women are feeling great right now, okay? They're living, thriving. We are on top of the world. And so this is going to start to change the way that women are acting, the way that they're dressing, the way that they're displaying themselves out in public. Things are going to be a little different for women coming soon. And then if you look at that fifth photo, this is just a reiteration of prohibition and the role that women played before they received the right to vote. So these are some staunch-looking women in here. If you think about the women that were, the English women that were out on the streets in the Scarlet Letter, the ones that were judging Hester, that's these women. That's what they look like in my head. So the sign just says, lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. Basically saying, to our men, if you're drinking, you're not going to kiss these lips. Sorry. So they still very confident women. That's a pretty bold statement to tell to your men back in this time period. All right, moving on to our sixth picture. This is our flapper. So if you've ever been to a 1920s or Jazz Age or Gatsby themed party, this is the look you're going for, ladies. If you Pinterest it, this is what comes up. And so these women were so full of life. They were characterized by the short skirts, the short dresses they wore, the excessive jewelry, excessive makeup. They had these short little bob haircuts. Wish I could pull that off, but let's see. No, not feeling it. And I mean, look at this girl. She's having a great time. She looks like she's having so much fun. So these women, they didn't really care what society thought about them or anymore, what society would say that they should act. They were going to do their own thing. They were going to be the life of the party, and they were. They would dance, they would drink, they would smoke. Even though drinking was illegal, they didn't care. They did it all. They would go out to these clubs. They just had a good time. They would even, wait for it, drive themselves in a car. They did not have to be driven by a man. These women were, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to have fun and look good doing it. So they were definitely the talk of the town, the flappers. And moving on to number 7. Okay, this is a picture of a news article. Jury convicts Capone. So this is, we're talking about Al Capone here. He is one of the world's history's most infamous gangsters or mobsters. So he was largely a criminal. He got his share of fame by just breaking the law and being extremely good at doing it. He was kind of the catalyst for organized crime, like the grandfather of this increase in crime that we're going to see during this time period. And so the main thing that he was in trouble for doing was bootlegging. And so bootlegging back then, it's anything, well, even now, anything making, selling, or distributing something illegally. And so if you think about what bootlegging is often referred to as now, it's recording a movie in the movie theater on your phone and putting it out on the internet somehow for people to download and watch for free. When I was growing up, it was music, putting MP3s on LimeWire or Napster for free. But for Al Capone, bootlegging, it was what was illegal. What were people not allowed to have? Alcohol. So he was like the organizer of just mass bootlegging of alcohol. And so he was selling it, he was organizing other people to sell it, and when he was eventually caught by the FBI and eventually convicted, he was put in Alcatraz, which is one of the most infamous prison systems in the United States. It's where the really bad ones go. And so he was there. Also, with the bootlegging, they would do it through these places called speakeasies. So they were basically just like underground bars, places where they were secret for you to go and drink and buy alcohol. And in doing all of this, he also did some illegal activities in the stock market. Wall Street people were buying and selling in ways that they shouldn't be. And you'll learn about a little bit of that in the novel as well. So, and then lastly, we have just the Jazz Age. Like I said, F. Scott Fitzgerald basically invented this. These were the 20s, the Roaring 20s. I think there's that new, I don't know if it's Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco, but they have a song, the Roaring 20s. And so this is that time period that we're speaking of. Again, Fitzgerald was like the father of this time period. And so this is the direct inverse, the complete opposite of what we had before World War I, when people weren't doing. Now people are indulging. Everything that they want, they're getting. It's an age of wealth, an age of freedom, self-indulgence, just overall exuberance, which, like I said, everything that comes up must come down, and well, the stock market crashed at the end of the Jazz Age. And then October 29th, 1929 is what led us into the Great Depression. And so that's basically where the Jazz Age comes to its early end, and things start to look grim in the United States again. But luckily for us, we get to stay in the Jazz Age, the Great Gatsby, and focus on all the excitement. So, again, you should have been taking notes on this document for while I spoke. If you need to go back and pause and rewatch later, feel free to do that. If you have questions, you know where to find me. Bye.